there's so many liberal values that they espouse. For example, they claim they care about ending gun violence. And we warned you guys on RBN, do not listen to these goddamn shit libs who are trying to disarm us. You gotta know as Marxists what our positions on guns are. But it's amazing their hypocrisy. Their hypocrisy, because they're the one that goes around like, we gotta end gun violence. Jamal Bowman, he's gonna get another screaming match with somebody next week over this. You're not doing enough to save the kids. Meanwhile, Jamal Bowman in the left is voting for billions of dollars of arm deals to Ukraine. And I did a story months ago. Actually, I might as well pull it up after this, where the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, under Joe Biden said we are worried about black arms sales, and that's going to go to Nazis, white nationalists, the cartel all over the world. I mean, this is over a year ago. I'll report on this. You want to know who didn't report on this? The entirety of the NATO left. You didn't see Sam Cedar, David Figueredo. Do you think David Pacman was going to do a video talking about how our arms sent to Ukraine is ending up on the black market at about a 50% rate? Oh, but they're going to tell you how much they care about gun violence. Why we got to disarm you? We got to disarm you so we send those guns to Nazis in Ukraine. So let me listen to the report. I think I'm bearing the story enough. Mexican media reports that United States made Javelin anti-tank missile launchers, thousands of which were recently sent by the Pentagon to Ukraine, has been spotted in the hands of the Mexico's Gulf cartel. So the party of law and order, yeah, the Republican Party, the Republican law and order, they are indirect weapon manufacturers for the cartel. Liberals who are against gun violence, they are endorsing and supporting and are complicit with a giant black market arms boom. So liberals only care about gun violence as long as it's brown people overseas, as long as we're funding Nazis in order for them to continue their imperial conquest. So, as a Marxist who like to point out contradictions in the Capitol, you can point out the contradictions to the Democratic Party and liberal talking points all day, every single day. And any take on this? I got one more receipt before we move on. Misty, CJ, anything you want to add on this before I move on?
No, I mean, it's just this is par for the course. You're right. They don't care about. I keep telling people, if you want to disarm, then we need to start with the military and the cops. Then we'll talk. Then we can talk, but not until. It's ridiculous. No, there's absolutely, and the hypocrisy makes me sick. The idea that, they prance around voting for every war that ever happens. They're fine with drone strikes blowing up children. They're fine with, the fact that we are illegally occupying and invading countries all over the world. They're fine with that, but they want to take your guns. And really, it's one of those hotbed issues. It's one of those emotionally charged issues that they use against us. They weaponize these issues because they know that there's very polarizing views, and it's another way that they can keep us divided.
And let me add this part. You can't be climate crusader activist and pro-Ukraine war. Okay?
Yes.
Let's just put that on the table. You can't be like, I'm for the climate, but it's okay for the number one polluter in human history to keep going and giving them more money. That just doesn't fly.
No.
RFK Jr., Marianne Williamson, every Democratic progressive that runs. Like, that's just weird. Go ahead.
No, this is how Reuters reported on this, because this is what Russia pointed out, obviously, in October. And many people say, you got to see how they lead what the Russia says this, even though the DHS was warning about this. You have multiple gun rights organizations like, yo, what about this? This what you guys doing is crazy, right? Now, like I said, Russia says West Ukraine weapons are going into the black market. Now, we've seen javelins, anti-tank missiles. We've seen the cartels being armed. There's reports of neo-Nazi groups in Brazil being getting arms as well. And this is what the DHS was talking about as well. Look at this. The DHS concerned over Nazis returning to the United States after fighting in Ukraine. Why isn't the media? Why isn't Bernie Sanders? Why isn't the people who are against terrorism not worried about what was obviously going to happen when you flood an area, which was largely considered the most corrupt country in Europe before this war? The most corrupt country in Europe get them $1 billion of weapons. There was reports that CBS had to retract because they got pressured, where only like 25-30% of the weapons were hitting the front line. And we know that is to be true because Ukraine constantly asking for new weapons. And like, we just send you all those damn weapons. Why you need weapons for? So this is the reality of what's happening. Last thing I got to add on this issue, kind of go back to what we were talking about earlier. And I'm gonna read just a little bit of this since we're talking about Ukraine. I want to show you guys how unhinged Zelenskyy is and how NATO is filled with a bunch of crazy motherfuckers, crazy unhinged motherfuckers. And then there's like a few of them that's like, what the fuck we doing? Now, once again, these people are not great. I'm not saying they're great. I'm saying they are, imagine you seeing a bunch of crazy people propose a bunch of crazy shit, and they just passively say, hey, I don't agree. Maybe we should have Ukraine join NATO. That's a bad idea. No. Let's continue. Let's see what Zelenskyy says. NATO divided on Ukrainian membership as Zelenskyy renews call. Ukrainian president appeals to dozens of European leaders as divisions among NATO members meeting in Norway become apparent. Now, we reported on the divisions within NATO, and there was NATO representatives questioning why we are expanding next to Russia because we supposed to be the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. But listen to what Zelenskyy says here. Zelenskyy has taken its quest for more arms and Ukraine membership into powerful Western institutions. He renewed NATO membership. I'm going to skip to the quote. Zelenskyy said, all countries bordering Russia should be full members of both organizations, since Moscow tries to swallow only those who are outside the common security space. So you have liberals and people who are supportive of arming Nazis in Ukraine who deny Russians a claim for they are responding to aggression. This is Zelenskyy just straight up saying that, yeah, we should have a straight up hostile surrounding of Russia. How is Russia not supposed to take that offense? How are they not supposed to feel threatened by that? He called for more European support on the ground, which he said is saving lives and accelerating peace. That is not what's happening.
Bullshit.
Ukrainians are dying way more than Russians. I'm going to temporarily turn my camera off, but I'm still here. Let's see here. But yeah, this pretty much Zelenskyy calling for more NATO enlargement. Now, you had Finland that joined NATO. Turkey is still against Sweden joined NATO. That's the biggest divide, and that's mostly what they're talking about here. But this shows that if the Western leaders continue to follow Zelenskyy, like he's launching drone strikes into Russia, calling for complete NATO surrounding of Russia, which not anyone in NATO agrees with. But that's the last thing I wanted to share. But this is I want to read. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, and then I'm gonna insert my part. As part of this story, I want to insert the video that kind of goes with this segment right here.
Yeah, this is the quote I was looking for. NATO's open door policy remains in place, but at the same time, it is clear that we cannot talk about accepting new members who are in the midst of a war. This from the German foreign minister.
Well, that's like that's been a long-standing criteria for entering into NATO. You cannot be even considered for membership if you are currently in a state of war, period. And that is, I don't know why Zelenskyy thinks he gets special treatment, but he thinks he gets special treatment. I just want to say, too, anybody who's interested, Kyle Anzalone, he does a lot of writing for antiwar.com and the Libertarian Institute, which I know libertarians here, don't come for me. I love Kyle. He does great work covering the whole Finland, Sweden, Ukraine entering into NATO, that whole story. He does amazing coverage of that. So definitely go check him out.
Yeah, and it may seem like this person is rational, but they are not.
No.
I want you guys to understand. Because this statement is meant to provoke Russia. What do I mean by that? So one thing that provoke Russia is this bullshit that European leaders keep doing when they say, oh yeah, Ukraine, they definitely going to be a member of NATO. One day, not quite sure yet, we're gonna leave the door open for Ukraine. So what they're doing is endangering Ukraine and provoking Russia. Because Russia, like, what the fuck? Ukraine, we had an agreement. The Minsk Accord, we had an agreement that Ukraine do not join NATO. So by saying that Ukraine gonna join NATO, that provokes Russia, while at the same time putting Ukraine at risk by not putting them as official NATO members. But I will put out the distinction, and many people have been reporting on this recently. Ukraine has been funded significantly more than other NATO members. When you look at how you had CIA officers, you had British intelligence officers in Ukraine. We now supplying them F-5 fighter jets, long-range drone missiles. They are a de facto NATO country.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is the only reason they're not accepting NATO in Ukraine so they can continue to make the political claim that Russia has no reason to wage war with them. That's why, even though this person saying this statement, they're not a good person, because they know we are going to essentially have you as a NATO member, but we're going to keep like a carrot on the stick. So Russia can continually be threatened and continue and have a reason to wage war. That's what that's really about. But that's my last thing on this topic. We can get to the main story. We almost are in. That's a good warm up. CJ,
let me play this. Let me just play this video. It's less than a minute. This is President Volodymyr Zelenskyy speaking himself. Let's listen to what he says.
I would like to emphasize, in summer in Vilnius at the NATO summit, the clear invitation to membership for Ukraine is needed, and the security guarantees on the way to NATO membership are needed. In fall, on our accession to the EU, clear positive decision is needed, and we are also preparing for peace summit, which will guide the world majority to implement the joint peace formula. And it is a global needed. The time has come, and the doubts must vanish. And I thank those who are helping, those who understand that every step in air defense enforcement is literally saving lives. And the speed of forming these two coalitions, the coalitions of Patriot and coalition of modern jets, is literally accelerating. I would like.
That's him. He wants the membership this upcoming summer. That's what he's asking for.
Go fuck yourself.
I don't know. Is he playing the role? This part, does he know that they're really just dangling this, or does he really believe? What do you think, Nick?
He playing his role. He knows he's gonna be taken care of no matter what after his service. But this is he's gonna continue to make this plea because that's his role, to be the guy who aggressively advocate for Ukraine, and like almost like that that guy who's hit on the girl playing hard to get, and that's his role to do that and give the appearance that it's gonna happen. Even though everyone knows it's not going to happen, they just use this to provoke Russia. So, and that's the biggest criticism of Zelenskyy. It's obvious that he sold his people out.
Yes,
he was limited on a peace platform, and he is prolonging this war. And even in that statement, he says we are saving lives. But there have been reports of 300,000 plus dead Ukrainians in this war.
Oh, dude, they have completely slaughtered an entire generation of Ukrainian men, period. Like, the Ukrainian people have been unbelievably devastated by this situation. And he does not seem to care in any way, shape, form, or fashion that is the case. And he's so gross. The things that he's doing, it is very intentionally attempting to escalate with Russia. I mean, just recently he tweeted out from his official social media a very altered video of Lindsey Graham, who I'm no fan of, but it made it appear as if Lindsey Graham was saying that Russians dying was like the best money we've ever spent. It's not what he said. Listen, I totally believe Lindsey Graham probably thinks that, but he, I mean, that attempts to escalate things. I mean, they're one of the high-level Ukrainian members of government gave a statement somewhere where they said they openly admitted that they are attempting to assassinate Vladimir Putin. What? What are you doing? Why would you say that? I mean, Putin made a deal long ago that he would not attempt to assassinate Zelenskyy, and he has held to that over this whole time. There's been no assassination attempts on Zelenskyy that we know of. There have been assassination attempts, or at least the appearance of them, on Vladimir Putin, and there's this constant pecking. You know what I mean? He's like constantly trying to escalate, and I think, again, as Nick said, he's just playing his role there.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand that during the beginning of this war. Now, things have changed. Russia said Zelenskyy fucked up, he got to go. But a lot of people don't know, in the beginning of the war, Russia even offered for Zelenskyy to stay in charge. in their initial
Yeah.
peace charges. Like their demand was not for Zelenskyy to step down.
No.
Now they have since changed the position. Putin gave
Of
a
course.
speech usually say like after what Zelenskyy has done, the way he obviously don't care about the Ukrainian people, the way he went endless war with Russia, he wanted to be a puppet of the West, he has to go for peace to happen now. And that's because of Zelensky's actions. It's just that simple. That was not his demands. Look it up. That was not his demand in the beginning. If it was, can you imagine what the media? Imagine the media would be constantly saying that Putin demanding Zelenskyy to step down. They didn't run that story because they couldn't. That was never that wasn't their demand to recently. To maybe I saw the speech last winter. That's when I saw it. When I was aware, they're like, yeah, Zelenskyy gotta go, and at that point it was too late. So. At this point, we can get to the main story.
Yeah, let me just add this point because let me just add this point because you mentioned we spoke about the number of people and you said a generation of Ukrainian and we have lost, and also this part here. I just want to show the headline. This because of that lost generation, they resorting to Ukraine sends poor and untrained men into Bakhmut meat grinder to save better forces for counteroffensive, and that's what they're doing. And I covered this already in another segment. It'll be published tomorrow, I think. So if you want to check out the whole segment, but is essentially where they're just sending in people to their certain death. Like they're just, hey, go in. Go in.
No training, no proper equipment. I mean, they're getting all of this military equipment and weapons from the United States and from the West and from Europe and all of that stuff. And yet there's a lot of reports from Ukraine that they are being sent out there without the proper equipment, with very little, if any, training at all. And they are just, it's essentially a suicide mission. They're just sending these people to the front line to die for no reason.